Lyra walked through the wide metal corridors of the colony station, her steps soft and careful. But everywhere she went, people turned away. Mothers pulled their children closer. Workers covered their noses. Some even whispered cruel words as she passed. They did not have to say much. Their faces told her the truth: she was unwanted. Lyra had been different since birth, her skin pale blue, her eyes bright like glass, and her scent, the scent that no one could ignore. It was sharp, heavy, and filled the air around her. It made others cough and gag. It was not something she chose, it was simply there, like a curse placed on her body. No matter how much she tried to wash herself in the recycled water tanks, no matter how she scrubbed her skin until it burned, the smell never left. It clung to her like a shadow. Children once threw stones at her and called her rot breath. Merchants chased her away from the market when she tried to buy food. Guards warned her not to come near the central plaza again. Her life was nothing but silence, hunger, and loneliness. She learned to stay in the forgotten corners of the colony, near broken machines that hissed with steam. There she would sit with her knees pulled close to her chest, listening to the hum of the engines, pretending it was a voice speaking to her. Sometimes she closed her eyes and imagined a world where no one hated her, but that world felt impossible. Lyra wanted to cry often, yet she held her tears. Tears never changed anything. If she cried, the smell seemed stronger, and then the few who dared to come near would leave at once. At night, when the colony lights dimmed, she searched for leftover food, stale bread, or pieces of fruit thrown into waste bins. It was the only way she survived, she told herself each night. Tomorrow will be better. But tomorrow was always the same. Her people were known for beauty, grace, and sweet fragrance. Visitors from other planets praised them for their elegance. But Lyra was the opposite, the shame of her kind. To them, she was a mistake, an error born from the stars. Still, there was something inside her, a small light that refused to die. When the voices mocked her, she whispered in her heart, "One day someone will see me, someone will understand." It was hope, thin as a thread, but it was all she had. One day, while walking near the docking bay, she felt the stares sharper than usual. A group of her people blocked her path, their faces twisted with anger. "Why are you here again?" one of them shouted. "Your smell poisons the air. You bring shame to us all." The others nodded, their voices rising. "Leave! Go to the waste tunnels where you belong." Lyra lowered her head, hugging herself tighter. Her heart pounded, her breath quickened, but she said nothing. Words never helped. She turned and walked away, the echo of laughter following her. In that moment, she wished she could vanish, dissolve into the metal floor, and never return. But fate had other plans. As she moved toward the shadows of the station's outer sector, she noticed something strange. HFY ship had landed quietly, different from the usual alien craft. Its body was silver and strong, marked with symbols she did not recognize. Strangers stepped out, tall figures with clear eyes and firm movements. They were humans. Lyra had heard of them before. Stories spread through the colony, telling of their courage, their strange ways, and their endless curiosity. But she had never seen one with her own eyes. Now, as she hid behind a cargo crate, she watched them carefully. The humans spoke to the traders, exchanged supplies, and laughed with one another. They seemed so alive, so free, not like her people who lived with rules of perfection, who judged anyone who was different. For a brief moment, Lyra wondered, if one of these humans saw her, would they hate her too? Or would they be different? She shook her head quickly, pushing away the thought. No one could ever accept her, not with this curse. It was safer to remain hidden, safer to stay in the shadows. But destiny had already begun to move. One of the humans, a tall man with sharp eyes, turned his head as if sensing something. His gaze swept across the docking bay, stopping for a heartbeat. Near the corner where Lyra hid, her breath caught, her body froze for a single second. She felt as though those human eyes could see right through her, not with disgust, not with fear, but with curiosity. She quickly lowered herself behind the crate, heart racing. "Please do not come," she whispered to herself. "Please do not see me." Yet, deep inside, another voice spoke. soft but powerful. What if this is the moment? What if he is the one? The air around her grew heavy. The smell that had cursed her life spread slowly into the docking bay. The humans paused. Some wrinkled their noses. The tall man frowned slightly, not in anger, but in thought. Lyra pressed her hands over her mouth, praying he would ignore it, but he did not. He began to walk toward her step by step, drawn by something even he could not understand, and in that moment, for the first time in her life, Lyra's story truly began. Lyra did not sleep that night. Her mind kept replaying the scene in the docking bay, the moment when the tall human's eyes seemed to meet hers. It was a strange feeling, one she had never known before, as if someone had truly noticed her, not just her smell, but her existence. She lay curled up in her small hiding place, an abandoned maintenance tunnel at the edge of the station. Pipes dripped water onto the floor. Steam hissed from broken valves. The air was cold and damp, but this was her home, her shelter from the hatred outside. She whispered to herself, "Why did he look at me like that? Why did he not turn away?" Her voice echoed softly in the tunnel, a lonely sound that no one else would ever hear. For years, Lyra had lived in the shadows. She knew which corners of the colony no one visited, which storage rooms were left unlocked, which machines produced enough heat to keep her alive during the cold cycles. She was a ghost moving through steel corridors, unseen, unwanted, but always there. Her people had erased her name from the records. In the central plaza, the registry of every citizen was displayed in glowing letters, but hers had been removed. To them, she was not only unwanted, she was erased, a mistake they wished to forget. But she remembered. She remembered the faces of her parents, who once held her when she was small, the warmth of her mother's embrace, the pride in her father's eyes before the smell became stronger and their love turned into fear. One night they left her outside the living quarters, closing the doors forever. Since then, she had been alone. Lyra's only companions were shadows and machines. She often spoke to the humming engines, telling them her secrets. The engines never mocked her, never turned away. They listened with their constant low voices, and in her imagination, they answered back. It was the only comfort she knew, but deep inside she longed for more. She wanted someone to speak her name, to look at her without disgust, to see her as more than the cursed girl. That small light of hope still flickered inside her heart. Even when the world tried to crush it, every day followed the same rhythm. She searched for scraps of food left behind in waste bins. She drank recycled water from the pipes. She wrapped herself in old cloth she found in the scrapyards, and every day she heard the voices of her people laughing in the distance, living lives of comfort and beauty. She was never part of them, but she could not stop hearing them. Sometimes she dared to walk close to the central areas, hiding in alleys, just to watch. She saw families eating together, friends walking arm in arm, children laughing and playing. Each scene pierced her heart, reminding her of what she could never have. But still she watched because even from far away, those moments gave her a taste of life. Yet danger was always near. The guards had orders to chase her if they saw her. Too close, they called her a bio-risk, a danger to public health. But she knew it was a lie. Her scent was unpleasant, yes, but it never harmed anyone. It was their pride, their obsession with perfection, that made her an enemy. One evening, while returning to her tunnel, Lyra felt a sudden weakness in her chest. Her stomach growled painfully. She had not eaten in 2 days. Her legs trembled as she leaned against the wall, whispering, "I cannot fall, I must keep walking." But her body gave out and she collapsed on the cold floor. As her vision blurred, she thought of the human again, the tall man with sharp eyes. Why had he looked at her like that? Why had his face carried curiosity instead of hatred? The memory was like a spark in the darkness, a reminder that maybe, just maybe, there was another kind of world beyond this one. She slept in that state, her body weak, her spirit fragile. When she woke hours later, she forced herself to move, again dragging her body back to the safety of her tunnel. Her survival had become routine, but it was not living, it was only existing. Yet something had changed in her heart. Ever since she saw the humans, her thoughts were restless. She could not stop wondering what they were like, what kind of people they truly were. Did they also judge others for appearance and smell, or did they see value in things her people could not? This question haunted her as she wandered through the empty halls. For the first time in her life, she felt the stir of curiosity stronger than fear, and with it came a dangerous thought. What if she tried to see the humans again? She shook her head quickly, whispering, "No, they will only hate me too." But her heart answered back, "What if they don't?" For now, she returned to the only world she knew, the world of shadows and silence, but the seed had been planted. The image of the human who looked at her without disgust was burned into her memory, and that image gave her something she had not felt in years, a reason to move forward. Little did she know, the shadows she called home would not protect her much longer. Fate was already reaching for her, pulling her toward a future she could never imagine. And soon the life of silence would end, replaced by something far greater. The docking bay was alive with sound. Engines roared, machines rumbled, traders shouted, and yet, in the middle of all this noise, Lyra felt more silent than ever. She stood in the shadows, pressed against the cold wall, her body tense as her eyes followed the humans. They were unlike her people. Their skin came in different shades, their hair in different colors, their movements strong but unpolished. Where her kind walked with elegance and grace, these humans walked with confidence and energy. They were not afraid to laugh loudly, not afraid to show hunger or tiredness. To Lyra, they seemed so alive, so free, and among them was the one she could not forget. The tall man with sharp eyes. He wore a worn jacket, his boots scuffed by travel, his face marked with quiet strength. When he looked around, it was as though he was measuring the world, searching for something hidden. His name, though Lyra did not yet know it, was Elias. Her heart raced as she watched him. He was speaking to a trader exchanging metal crates, but his eyes, every so often, drifted toward the edges of the bay, toward her hiding place. It was as if he could sense her presence, though she tried to shrink smaller into the shadows. She told herself, "Stay hidden, do not let him see, he will hate you like the others." But the thought was weak. Something inside her wanted to be seen, wanted to know what it felt like to stand before someone who did not instantly turn away. A sudden crash echoed through the bay. One of the alien loaders dropped a container, its contents spilling across the floor. The heavy scent of fuel spread through the air, mixing with the constant background smells of metal and smoke. It masked her own odor for a moment, giving her a strange chance to move. Before she knew it, her feet carried her a step closer. Her eyes locked on Elias. For a heartbeat, their gazes met. And this time, Lyra did not hide. Elias frowned slightly. Tilting his head, he did not wrinkle his nose. He did not shout at her to leave. He only looked at her as though trying to understand something he could not explain. Her chest tightened. She felt her body trembling. This was the first time in her life someone had looked at her without disgust. She whispered under her breath, why are you not afraid?" But then, one of the alien guards noticed her. "Outcast," the guard barked, stepping forward. "Leave this place, you are forbidden here." The voices of nearby workers joined. "Yes, get her out, she poisons the air." Lyra froze, her chance slipping away. The guards began to push through the crowd toward her. She wanted to run, but her legs felt heavy. Elias's eyes followed the commotion, and then, to Lyra's shock, he stepped forward. "What is happening here?" he asked in a firm voice, his alien translator device carrying his words in the tongue of her people. The guard snarled, "This one does not belong. She carries filth with her wherever she goes." He reached out to grab Lyra's arm, but Elias's hand moved first. He placed himself between the guard and the girl, his body steady like a wall. "That is enough," Elias said, his voice calm but sharp. "She is no threat to me." The guard glared. "You do not understand. She is cursed. She is—" But Elias raised his hand, cutting him off. "I do not see a curse. I see a girl who has been treated unfairly." The crowd murmured. whispers spreading quickly. Lyra's eyes widened, her breath caught in her chest. No one had ever defended her. No one had ever spoken for her. She wanted to speak, to thank him, but the words would not come. Her throat felt locked. Her hands clutched her tattered cloth tightly, and yet her heart beat with a strange warmth. The guard, angry but unwilling to fight the human in front of so many witnesses, spat on the floor and stepped back. "Keep her if you wish, human, but do not say we did not warn you." With that, the guards left, the crowd slowly returning to their business. Though many still watched with curious eyes, Elias turned, finally facing her fully. For the first time, Lyra saw his eyes clearly, deep brown with a hint of weariness but filled with determination. He spoke gently. "You are safe now." Lyra shook her head quickly, her voice trembling. "No one is safe with me. You should not come near the smell." But Elias only tilted his head and said, "Smell is nothing. I have lived in battlefields. I have known worse. What matters is who you are." Her heart nearly broke at those words. She had never been spoken to like that, never been seen as more than her curse. Tears welled in her eyes, though she quickly wiped them away, ashamed. Elias crouched slightly, lowering himself to her level. "My name is Elias," he said. "What is yours?" Her lips trembled as she whispered, "Lyra." Her name sounded strange, soft, almost forgotten, but when Elias repeated it, "Lyra," it felt alive again, as though her very existence had been pulled back from the edge of nothingness. She wanted to ask why he cared, why he did not push her away like all the others. But before she could speak, Elias stood tall again, glancing around. "You should not stay here," he said. "Come with me. You look like you need rest and food." Her mind screamed at her to run, to hide. Her whole life had been built on fear and rejection, but her heart whispered, "This is the moment you have waited for." And with trembling steps, unsure of what awaited her, Lyra followed the human toward a path that would change everything she thought she knew. The path to the human ship felt unreal to Lyra. Her feet moved, but her mind could not believe what was happening. All her life she had been chased away, mocked, erased. Yet here she was, walking beside a stranger who did not cover his nose or turn his head. She kept glancing at Elias, half expecting him to suddenly change his mind, to push her away like everyone else, but he did not. The human ship loomed ahead, different from the sleek silver designs of her people. It was heavier, rougher, its walls marked with dents and scratches from travel. To Lyra, it felt alive in a way the colony never had, as if this ship carried stories of places she could not even imagine. When they reached the entrance, Elias pressed his hand to the panel, and the door hissed open. Warm light spilled out, soft and golden. So different from the cold white lights of the colony, Lyra froze at the edge, her body trembling. She whispered, "I should not go in. Your people will not want me here." Elias looked at her calmly. "This is my ship and you are my guest. If anyone has a problem, they can come to me." There was no doubt in his voice, no hesitation. Lyra lowered her eyes and stepped inside. The air was different too. It smelled of oil, cloth, and faint spice, nothing like the sharp metallic scent of the colony. Her own odor mixed into the air, and she tensed, waiting for the reaction. But Elias only walked ahead, not even flinching. He led her through a narrow hall into a small chamber. There was a bed with folded blankets, shelves with old books, and a low table scattered with tools. It was messy compared to the perfect designs of her people, but to Lyra it felt warm. It felt real. For the first time, she was inside a place where she did not feel like an intruder. Elias turned to her, his voice steady. "You look tired, hungry too. But first you need water." He opened a side door and steam drifted out. Inside was a simple washing room, pipes and tanks fitted together with human practicality. Not beauty, but function. Lyra stepped back, shaking her head. "No, it will not help. I have washed many times. It never changes. The smell always returns." Her voice cracked, the shame heavy in her chest. Elias studied her carefully, then said, "Maybe it is not about removing the smell. Maybe it is about showing you that you are not dirt, that you are worth care. The word struck her harder than any insult ever had. Worth care. She did not even know what that felt like. Before she could speak, Elias filled a basin with warm water. He placed a clean cloth beside it and stepped back. "You can do this yourself if you want, or I can help. It is your choice," he said. Lyra looked at him with wide, uncertain eyes. No one had ever given her a choice before. Slowly she stepped into the room, her hands shaking as she touched the water. It was warm, gentle against her skin. Her throat tightened, tears stinging. Her eyes. For so long she had washed herself in cold, recycled water from broken pipes. Now, for the first time, she felt what it meant to be treated with dignity. Elias stood by the doorway, giving her space. But when he saw her struggling to scrub her arms, he moved forward. "Let me," he said softly, taking the cloth. She wanted to refuse, shame burning inside her. But his eyes were steady, not mocking, not cruel. And so, she let him. His movements were careful, patient. He wiped the dirt from her arms, her shoulders, her face, as though she were someone precious. Lyra closed her eyes, her breath trembling. Every touch washed away not just the grime, but the years of loneliness that had clung to her. The smell lingered, faint, but present. Yet Elias never flinched, never pulled back. Instead he said, "Do you know what I see?" She shook her head, whispering, "A curse." But he answered, "I see someone who has survived what no one else could. I see strength." Her eyes flew open, her lips parted. No one had ever said those words to her. Strength. She had always thought of herself as weak, unwanted, broken. But to Elias she was strong. As the water dripped down her skin, Lyra felt lighter. Not because the smell was gone, it still lingered. But because, for once, it did not matter. For once, someone looked past it. When the washing was done, Elias handed her a blanket and guided her to the small bed. "Rest," he said. "I will bring you food." Her body trembled as she sat down, clutching the blanket around her. She whispered, almost afraid to believe it, "Why are you doing this? Why help me?" Elias paused at the door, his voice calm. "Because everyone deserves a place to belong." Her chest tightened, tears rolling freely now. For the first time in her life, she was not hiding in shadows, not fighting to survive alone. She was sitting in a home, fragile but real. And though fear whispered that it might vanish at any moment, another voice, stronger than fear, told her this was only the beginning. And so, wrapped in warmth she had never known, Lyra closed her eyes. Her story was no longer only about suffering, it was about change, about the first step toward something greater. And though she did not know it yet, her life was about to shift in ways that would echo across the stars. The next morning, Lyra awoke to the soft hum of the human ship. For a moment she did not move, her body wrapped in the blanket Elias had given her, her mind lost between dream and reality. It felt strange, almost impossible, to wake in a place where no one was shouting at her to leave, no one was covering their nose, no one was calling her cursed. But as the memory of yesterday returned, her chest grew heavy. The smell, her curse, it had not gone. She knew it never, truly left. Sooner or later Elias would notice, and then he too would turn away. Her fingers gripped the blanket tightly, fear whispering that this fragile kindness could not last. A soft knock on the door made her jump. Elias stepped in carrying a tray of food, bread, fruit, and a warm drink that smelled faintly of spice. "Good morning," he said, his voice calm. "Eat, you need strength." Lyra sat up slowly, her eyes avoiding his. She whispered, "You should not be so close, the smell will." But Elias placed the tray beside her and said firmly, "The smell does not matter, what matters is you." Her heart trembled at his words. She took the bread with shaking hands, nibbling carefully. It was soft, rich, unlike the scraps she had stolen from waste bins. Tears threatened to rise again, but she swallowed them down. Elias watched her quietly, his eyes thoughtful. He had noticed something unusual, something beyond what her people had claimed. Her odor was strong, Yes, but it carried a strange sharpness, not like rot or filth. To him it seemed alive, almost chemical, like the faint sting of ozone before a storm. Later that day, while Lyra rested, Elias moved to his ship's small lab. He had collected a piece of cloth she had touched, holding traces of her scent. Placing it under the scanner, he began to analyze. Lines of data flickered across the screen, molecules breaking into patterns. At first nothing made sense, but then his eyes narrowed. What he saw was not filth at all. Her body was producing a rare compound, one unknown in human records but similar to natural biodefenses. It was protective, able to neutralize toxins and even destroy harmful bacteria in the air. The so-called curse was actually a shield, a gift hidden in plain sight. Elias leaned back, shock settling in. Her people had cast her aside for something that could save them. They had turned their backs on what might be the most valuable survival trait he had ever seen. He returned to Lyra, who sat curled on the bed, her hands folded tightly as if waiting for rejection. She lifted her head as he entered, her eyes uncertain. "Are you angry?" she whispered. "Did you finally realize what I am?" Elias shook, his head pulling a chair to sit near her. "What you are," he said firmly, "is something extraordinary." Her breath caught, confusion flashing across her face. "What do you mean?" He leaned forward, speaking slowly so she could understand. "Your scent, the thing they called a curse, it is not filth, it is protection. Your body creates a shield, a natural defense. Do you know what this means?" Lyra shook her head, unable to speak. To her, it had always been a mark of shame. Never. "Anything else, it means," Elias continued, "that you are not weak, you are not broken, you carry something powerful, something that could protect entire colonies from poisons, from sickness, from death itself." Her eyes widened, disbelief shaking her. "No," she whispered. "That cannot be true. They would not hate me if it was true." Elias's voice grew sharper, filled with anger, not toward her but toward the injustice. "They hated what they did not understand. They were blind, but I see it. I see you, Lyra. You are not cursed, you are needed." Her hands trembled, tears rolling down her cheeks. Needed. The word struck her harder than anything else. She had spent her whole life believing she was a burden, a mistake. Now this human told her she was needed, but with the hope came fear. "If others find out," she said, her voice shaking, "they will want to use me, they will take me, I will never be safe." Elias nodded slowly. "Yes, they will, which is why we must be careful. But you are not alone anymore, I will not let them take you." The weight of his words filled the room. For the first time, she was not carrying her burden alone. Someone else knew her truth, and instead of turning away, he had chosen to protect her. Lyra's chest ached with emotion, her voice breaking as she whispered, "Why? Why do you care?" Elias looked at her steadily. "Because no one deserves to be cast aside for what makes them unique, because I know what it means to be different, and because—" He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Because you deserve a chance to live." Her tears flowed freely now, not only of sorrow, but of release. The years of silence, rejection, and pain felt lighter, as though a door had opened she never thought existed. She clutched the blanket around her and whispered, "Then I will trust you, Elias." Her voice was fragile but filled with a spark of hope, and in that spark a new bond was born. The secret of her scent was no longer hidden, it was revealed, dangerous but powerful, and though shadows of danger waited outside the walls of the human ship inside for the first time, Lyra felt something she had never known before. She felt safe. The human ship had become Lyra's safe place. For the first time in her life, she slept without fear of being chased away. She ate without stealing, and she spoke without shame. Each day, Elias taught her small things: how to read human symbols, how to use the ship's simple tools, how to prepare food. She laughed softly sometimes, an awkward sound, unused to escaping her lips, but real. Yet outside, beyond the walls of the ship, whispers were growing. Her people had noticed her absence, and more importantly, they had noticed that the human captain had taken her in. To them, this was not kindness, it was a threat. If a human had found value in the outcast, then perhaps they had been wrong, and their pride could not allow that. One evening, as Lyra sat by the window of the ship's small cabin, she saw patrol lights sweeping across the docking bay. Voices carried through the steel corridors outside. Her body tensed, her hands gripping the edge of the seat. "They are searching," she whispered. "They are looking for me." Elias entered, his jaw tight, his voice low. "Yes, I know, they demanded I turn you over. They claim you are dangerous." Her heart dropped. "And what did you tell them?" He met her gaze without hesitation. "I told them no." Her chest burned with fear and gratitude all at once. "No one refuses them," she whispered. "They will not forgive you." Elias nodded, his eyes sharp. "I do not need their forgiveness, I need you safe." That night, the tension grew heavier. Alarms echoed faintly through the colony. Boots pounded the corridors, guards searching every corner. Lyra curled up on the bed, trembling. Her mind filled with images of being dragged away, locked in labs, used as an experiment. She whispered, over and over, "I am not ready, I cannot, please." Elias sat nearby, watching the door, a weapon across his lap. "You are not alone anymore," he said firmly. "If they come, they will face me first." But danger did not only come from her own people. The data Elias had uncovered, the truth of her scent, was too important. Word spread quickly, and in the black markets of the galaxy, rumors began. A girl with a body that could protect against poison, a living shield, a weapon worth more than fleets, pirates, mercenaries, and smugglers began to whisper her name. Though most had never seen her face, Lyra did not know it yet. But the shadows reaching for her were growing darker. 2 days later, Elias returned from a trade meeting with a grim expression. "They know," he said, his voice heavy. "Your people told others they are offering a reward for anyone who brings you back alive or dead." Her stomach twisted, her breath shallow. "Dead," she whispered. Elias placed a hand on her shoulder, steadying her shaking frame. "Listen to me, Lyra. We are leaving this station tonight. It is no longer safe." The hours that followed blurred into panic and preparation. Elias packed supplies, sealed the ship's systems, and charted a course to the outer colonies where human settlements existed. Lyra helped as much as she could, though her hands trembled with every item she touched. The fear inside her was heavy, but so was the flicker of trust. If anyone could protect her, it was Elias. When night fell, the station grew quiet, but the silence was heavy with danger. As they moved toward the docking controls, Lyra heard it. Metal boots echoing through the corridor, voices calling. "They are here," she gasped. Elias pushed her gently toward the ship's inner chamber. "Stay low. Stay quiet." The ship's doors sealed shut just as the first fist pounded against them. Through the comms, a voice thundered, "Human captain, hand over the outcast, or we will breach your vessel." Lyra's heart raced, her whole body trembling. She clutched the edge of the seat, whispering, "They will break in, they will take me." But Elias stood firm at the controls, his voice steady as he activated the engines. "Not today," he muttered. The ship roared to life, lights flooding the docking bay, and in a surge of power, it tore free from its moorings, soaring into the dark. The colony lights faded behind them, the voices silenced, but Lyra knew this was only the beginning. "They will follow," she whispered. "Yes," Elias answered. "But so will I, and I will not let them touch you." For hours they traveled in silence, stars streaking past the windows. Lyra sat wrapped in the blanket, her eyes wide, her thoughts spinning. She whispered at last, "Why do they hate me so much? Why can they not see what you see?" Elias looked at her, his face lit by the soft glow of the controls. "Because fear is easier than understanding, and cruelty is easier than kindness. But that is their blindness, not yours." Her chest tightened with both pain and warmth. To hear those words, to feel protected even as the galaxy seemed to turn against her, was something she had never known, but deep down she also knew he was right. They would not stop, not her people, not the hunters, not the ones who saw her as a prize. Danger would follow them across the stars. As she closed her eyes, leaning against the cold wall of the ship, she whispered, "Then I will keep moving. As long as you are there, I will keep moving." Her voice was soft, fragile, but filled with something new. Resolve. The stars outside glimmered, silent witnesses. To her vow, the hunted girl was no longer just an outcast. She was becoming something more, and though the shadows of danger stretched endlessly before her, she was not walking into them alone. The stars stretched endlessly outside the ship's windows. For days, Elias guided them across empty space, far from the colony, far from the voices that wanted Lyra captured or destroyed. The engines hummed like a heartbeat, steady and strong, but inside Lyra's chest, her own heart was restless. She often sat near the glass, wrapped in her blanket, watching the streaks of light pass, her mind still heavy with fear, still expecting at any moment for hunters to appear. But slowly, as hours became days, she began to notice something new. Silence, without cruelty, silence without rejection. For the first time, she was not hiding, she was traveling forward. Elias spoke little during the long journey, his eyes fixed on the charts and monitors, but his presence itself was steady. Every time she looked at him, she saw no sign of regret, no shadow of disgust, only calm determination. It gave her strength even when her body trembled with doubt. One evening, when the ship drifted into the calm of a quiet sector, Lyra finally asked, "Where are we going?" Elias leaned back in his seat, his voice low but sure. "To a place where humans built a settlement. Far from the central powers, they live free, they make their own rules. No one there will care about your scent, they will care about who you are." Her breath caught. The idea seemed impossible. A place where no one cared about her curse. A place where she could walk without fear. She whispered, "Can such a place be real?" Elias gave her a small smile. "Yes, and soon you will see it." When the human colony finally came into view, Lyra pressed her hands to the glass, her eyes wide. It was not sleek like the alien stations, not perfect or polished. The structures were rough, patched together with different metals, lights glowing warmly between them. Ships moved in and out, carrying supplies, laughter and voices carried even through the comms. It looked alive, messy but full of heart. The ship landed on a wide platform, steam rising as the engines cooled. Lyra's body shook with nerves, her mind spinning with questions. Would they reject her too? Would they mock her once they caught her smell? Her fear returned like a heavy weight, but when the door opened, she froze in shock. Children were running across the platform, chasing each other with bright laughter. Families walked together carrying tools and baskets. Some waved at Elias as though greeting an old friend. No one looked at her with narrowed eyes. No one pulled away. Elias stepped out first, turning to her. "Come, do not be afraid." Her legs trembled, but she stepped onto the platform, the air fresh and different. The moment she did, a group of children paused, their curious eyes landing on her. Her heart pounded. This was it. The moment they would wrinkle their noses. The moment the shame would return. But instead, one of the little girls smiled, tilting her head. "Your skin is so blue, like the sky," another boy laughed, "and your eyes shine like glass." They ran closer, their laughter echoing, reaching out to her without fear. Lyra's breath caught, tears rising as she whispered, "They are not afraid?" Elias's voice was gentle behind her. "I told you. Here no one judges. Here you are free." The children tugged her hands, pulling her forward. For the first time, she did not pull away. She let them touch her. She let them laugh. Her chest felt as though it would burst, years of loneliness breaking apart with every small smile around her. Later, Elias guided her to a small home built of metal and wood, its lights glowing softly. Inside, it was simple. 2 beds, a table, shelves with food and tools. But to Lyra, it was the most beautiful place she had ever seen. A home, not a hiding place, not a corner of shadows, but a home. She sat on the bed, clutching the blanket that Elias handed her. Her eyes wet, her voice trembling. I never thought I would have this. I never thought I would belong anywhere. Elias sat across from her, his face steady. You were never cursed, Lyra. You were only waiting for the right place, and now you are here. Her tears fell freely, but they were not tears of pain. They were tears of release, she whispered. Thank you, Elias. You gave me more than a home. You gave me back my life. Outside, the colony lights glowed warmly against the dark of space. Lyra lay down that night not in fear, but in peace. Her story of rejection had ended, and a new story had begun, one of hope and belonging. But even as she drifted to sleep, Elias sat awake, his eyes on the stars. He knew danger still lurked beyond this colony, hunters and pirates still searching. Her gift was too rare, too powerful to be forgotten. One day, they would come again. Yet as he looked at the sleeping girl wrapped in safety, Elias whispered to himself, "Let them come. This time she will not stand alone." And so, under the stars, in a place where laughter filled the air and warmth replaced rejection, Lyra had found her home, not perfect, not safe forever, but real, and for the first time in her life, that was enough.